Great.
We'll be able to look back on it, and the other allotment holders we'll put it on the website, and other allotments can see what we discussed. Okay, sorry, carry on.
Super. No, that's great. Thanks, Roy. Yeah, so for those that don't know, I'm the chair of the Duxford Allotment Society, and we've been having a bit of a chat about various topics over the last few months in response to Roy's suggestion that there might be a little bit more cash this year. So the things that we had in mind, there was obviously a little bit of disruption to the path to the gas shed over the winter, being rocked up, but that you've put some gravel down on that. Obviously it's a short-term, relatively short-term thing, but that sorts us out for the moment, which is great. The topic of water came up. I think at the end of, or close to mid to the end of last year, there was reports that a couple of the water butts needed replaced, and some of our members had mentioned that steel cattle troughs might be a possible amendment to the plastic ones that we've got. They would, you know, give more access to the water. The water butts obviously at the moment are purely for stopping there being a queue at the tap rather than for any sort of water saving facility. Obviously there's quite a cost difference between a large steel cattle trough water butt and the little plastic ones that we've got, so that's possibly open for debate. The other thing that a lot of people mention, particularly in the summer, is the flow of water to the allotments. So obviously we've got one input, one source rather, from the mains, which I believe is diverted off at some point to the scout hut as well. And this does get very slow, particularly on the end spurs during the evening in the summer months when everyone's watering at the same time. It's very difficult. So that's possibly a topic of discussion to how we can improve that. The woodland at the bottom of the allotments was also a topic of conversation, particularly recently. They, I believe historically the trees were planted around 2000 as a millennium project, mainly because there were some leftover trees, I think, from some other project. And these are obviously now very big, and perhaps not the ideal species if you were having a little woodland at the bottom of an allotment site. So it's kind of how do we, you know, personally I think you want to have some sort of woodland there. Certainly there's bees and chickens that some of our plot holders have down there that benefit from having that quiet, slightly shaded space, but it's how that impacts, particularly going forward when those trees get even larger, how that impacts on light and water and roots for the plot holders that are closest. And maybe there can be a tactical kind of cutting down of the trees closest or thinning out of coppicing trees to see if we can manage that a little bit better, maybe adding in some trees that are smaller, you know, fruit nut trees, something like that could be productive. So I'd be interested to hear thoughts on what other people think about that.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else got any ideas, anything that they want to bring up at all about their particular allotments or the allotments in general?
I just have one thing I'd like to say. And Joanne was very helpful, but I'm not really sure where I go forward with it. At the bottom of my allotment, all the allotment holders, we have this big conifer tree that blocks out the light at quite a big part of the day from my allotment, and I just can't remember the man's name, but there's 4 of us, and it's not in anyone's plot. And I think Joanne said, I think I'm right, is it the parish land it's on. It's not actually in anyone's allotment. So, you know, I don't know what we do about it, but it's getting bigger and bigger. But you'd have to come down and have a look at it. But I don't really feel, I mean, obviously I would tackle it if it was smaller, I'd trim it, but it's got really, really big.
Yeah, we've had a look at it, and yeah, I think we can get rid of it, as I don't think anybody's going to object to it not being there. So from that point of view, Celia.
If we have time, I know it's difficult, but if we have time, I remain extremely concerned about the very poor state of a significant number of plots, especially when we have a waiting list of really, really keen people. And I have written, you'll remember, Roy, I've written to you and Joanne with a suggestion about how that might be more rigorously, tightly managed with some serious kicking off of tenants who do nothing on their plots. I just feel really sorry for the people on the waiting list and some of our plots in a dreadful state.
Yeah, we have got quite a lot of long waiting lists at the moment. And Joanne sent me an email, which I can't find. How many did we got around Duxford, Joanne?
22 on the list.
We've got 22 on the list. Now, we did take into account, we used to have Whittlesford and everything as part of the Duxford parish, if you like, because we were all short of allotment holders. And now we're just down to, how many have we got in Duxford now?
Well, 9 on the list of 22 are non-parishioners.
No, they're non-parishioners. Yeah.
Mostly opposite IWM.
Yeah, which is with the bit just across to WIM. So we do have a long waiting list, and we are looking at, you know, how we can come down. I did an inspection, in actual fact, a few days ago, and I was quite surprised because the majority of them are being cultivated. And on the inspection, we found there was one which I don't think has been touched for a period of time. Another one where the person has actually given in their notice, so we will be getting something else of that. And a couple that might not be considered allotments, which we're looking into. So we will be sending letters out to the people that we that need to be told. And yeah, we will tighten up on it, and we'll do more, and we'll be firmer in our letters that we're sending out. We'll only give them, we've tended in the past, because we haven't had waiting lists and everything, then we've tended to ignore it to a certain extent. But now that we do have a waiting list for people to do it, then we will become much firmer. The allotments are meant to be done as allotments, and they must be cultivated. And we will be sending the letters out as per our contracts, and we will be getting rid of those that don't confirm a lot quicker, so that we can get people who want to use the allotments in. So we are working on that.
Can I ask what you mean there by not allotments? Is that not being cultivated?
Not being cultivated. Okay, I mean, so much of your allotment should be cultivated, you know, for the product of food and things like this. And yeah, you can have apple trees and everything, but there are places, if you like, with maybe too much grass there or what have you, which they need to you know, if they want to have an allotment, if they want to grow food, then that's fine. But we have plenty of places around Duxford where you can go and sit and take in the fresh air and what have you.
Roy, are they full-sized allotments, the ones which are under question?
One isn't, 2 are, I think, and one isn't. And I say it has been a lot of improvement. I mean, from when we went around before Christmas, you know, when it looked pretty desperate, and then, you know, when I went around last week, I was quite surprised at just how many had been dug up and were being cultivated. You know, and obviously, if we have some of the bigger allotments, people are struggling, then we will chat with them and see if they want to split their allotments up into 2 smaller ones or something like that. But we will make more emphasis on, you know, getting them up and getting them cultivated than we have done in the past, now that we have the waiting list and getting people into it. And we'll probably look mainly at people that are in the Duxford parish rather than people that are on the outside, and which I think is only fair.
Is that a kind of conscious, you know, the people that are in the parish, Duxford parish, will get kind of shunted up the list?
Yes, I mean, we will have to put that towards the parish council.
Joanne's shaking her head.
Okay. Anything we discuss today, okay, is, you know, we will discuss it with the parish council, and we will go to the parish council, and they will make a decision as to how they want to progress and what they agree to for us to do, and what we're not going to do. So, you know,
I think previously it was expanded to be the same as being a parish councillor. Is that right, Joanne? So
That's correct, yeah.
term's the same. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Yeah. That was when we didn't have people wanting to be allotment holders. Of course, it could all change this year as people go back to work and they realise that they don't have time, and that they don't want to cultivate it. But we will play it by ear, but we will ensure that, you know, if you've got an allotment, that it is cultivated. Right. Any other things anybody wanted to bring up before we go through these things?
Yeah, Roy, could I just ask that the protocol for sending out the letters is actually public, so that we know how many weeks there is between a first warning and a second warning,
Yes.
and also what the criteria is for cultivation, because I think that's really quite important, and it's one thing that's been under discussion. It comes up nationally in allotments,
Yeah.
where there are disagreements with allotment holders as to what constitutes cultivation. And we wouldn't be the first ones to fall foul of that. So I think
Yes.
it needs some kind of a definition. And I do think that the protocol ought to be known, so that we know that once you've sent a first letter out about cultivation, that how soon after that another letter about cultivation goes out.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, you know, the allotment next to us, one of 14A, I think it is, has not been cultivated for 4 years now, and it's a cycle of events that goes on from year to year. You know, it gets taken away from somebody, it gets given to somebody else, they don't cultivate it. By the time, if they come to the end of the line, it's another year gone by.
Yeah.
It's a waste of an allotment.
Yes, yeah, I agree. We are in the process that every year we have to review our parish policies, and so this is the time where we're reviewing them all, and we will be reviewing the terms and conditions, and making it making the policy regarding the allotments more open as to, and the processes that we go through if you're not doing it. We'll make that much more, and we will publish that within the next 2 months. We'll probably review it in May this year, and or in June. That will go towards the parish council, then we'll issue it to everybody from there. Bob.
Yeah, I'm listening to this and feeling very guilty, actually, because I am one of the people who maybe hasn't cultivated their allotment quite as much as a true allotmenteer would. And I've not been feeling too bad about that all the time. We didn't really have a waiting list, or that you know, my allotment wasn't the worst one. It's still not the worst one, by the way. But I think some clarity about what is expected, and definition, because, you know, is planting it up with wildflowers acceptable or not? Is a fruit tree an acceptable thing or not? And how much proportion could be trees, how much could be bushes, how much can be rhubarb, how much can be compost heap, all of these things. Now, you know, I welcome all these changes, but I think we do need to be careful on this transition, that, yes, we end up in a better place, so that the new people coming in, and maybe the people who have to accept that they're not doing what's necessary to keep an allotment, that's all very transparent and well organised. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, we will, what we will do, we'll get together, and we will put out a proposal of what we consider allotment should be, you know, and what should be in it, and that, and then we will send it out to all the allotment holders to ask for their opinions as well. So we won't have, I won't just say, right, you're allowed to do this, that, and the other, and it's to stop this and that, and we will pass it out to you. You can have a look at it, and then we'll take your comments into account and take it from there on it. Okay.
Roy, can I add something to what Bob has said?
Yes.
Not on mute.
James, sorry, yes.
It's simply this, that as Bob said, he didn't feel too bad about not cultivating when there wasn't demand for allotments. But one of the reasons that we enlarged or restored the eligibility for allotments to the same area as we recruit parish councillors from is that otherwise it's very easy when allotments are out of fashion to say, oh, there's no demand. So that puts the allotments themselves at risk, but it also takes the pressure off people if they feel that nobody wants the allotments anyway. So therefore, if the allotment's derelict, who cares? So it is actually quite important, and however you arrange the priority as between people who are Duxford residents and people who are beyond Duxford, to keep that wider eligibility so that the allotments are seen to be wanted. And there's that sort of dual pressure, not only to keep them, but also to cultivate them once you've been lucky enough to get one.
Yes, I mean, we won't actually sort of say, well, no, you can't be on the allotment list anymore. It will be, these are the people that, because they're actually local within Duxford, are at the top of the list. And if we have any spaces for other people, then when they come up, we will offer them to you. So
Sure.
We're not going to chuck everybody off the list and then have no list at all.
No. And just for the record, the National Allotment Society's guideline is that you should have a waiting list of 6 people for, or about 10% of the total number of allotments. So we got about 60. So a waiting list of 6 is actually healthy. A waiting list of none is not.
That's true. Yes. But yes, so we will not be chucking anybody off it or anything like that. We'll just ensuring that the priority goes to those that are most needed. Jennifer.
Just to clarify there, that proposal that, to slightly amend the waiting list kind of leanings, that's still a proposal from that you're going to put to the parish council. It's not confirmed yet.
No.
Right. Yeah. Good.
I mean, any decisions have to be made. I can't make any decisions. I have to take any proposals to the parish council, and they will decide as to whether it's acceptable, whether we can spend this money in this or what have you. So it all has to go through that, and it will be in the agenda, and come up before the meeting anyway.
That's great.
Okay. All right. So looking at it, then the biggest problem I can see is water on the allotments and the water butts. Getting new water. I guess we have to think, what do we want to prioritise? Is water our biggest priority on the allotments? And to a certain extent it is. Now we do have water butts that need changing, and the idea is to put the bigger troughs in. They cost about 100 and where are we? They're about £180 to put them in. Okay. And they have their own self-filling, so that we don't have to have the taps turned on or anything. There are a number of water butts that need changing. One of the reasons, or one of the ideas that we brought up with these type of water butts, is that they will fill up automatically, so they'll be filling up 24 hours a day after they've been used. And so in the evening, you're not going to have hose pipes being turned on all the time, all at the same time. They will fill themselves up. They will get some rainwater into them as well to help keep them filled up. And it will stop a lot of the leaks and taps being left on, etc. One of the things that are being sent against having something like that, because that would entail taking the tap away from the water butts. And if they were having them self-filled, then people say, well, we fill our own water butts up for them. So we still need the taps on them so we can fill our water butts up on site. So the case to have them, because it gives us more room and it'll stop any water leaks and what have you. The other thing on water, we can look into the cost of having another water supply put on with higher pressure. All right. Now, if we're going along this sort of line that water butts and water is the important thing, then we're probably looking at a 1, 2, 3 year maybe project, because the cost of having water put in, I think when we looked at Brewery putting a water tap in on Brewery Field, it was something like nearly £2,000 just to have the water tap put in. All right, we can look to see if we can increase the pressure on the taps that are in there. They haven't been touched for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. So it would be a plan to put some more piping down as well, so that all corners of the allotments have it, and improve the pressure on it, and check the piping out, some of it which is rotting away and leaking. We did have the leaks checked this year. Some of the taps have leaked a little bit. And the other emphasis is that if we leave the taps on, then people mustn't be using them to put their hose in and water their garden from the taps. It's not designed, allotments aren't designed for people to be able to just shove their sprinklers on and leave the water on and let it spray out. So one has to be conservative, if you like. Another thing we may consider putting in is some large watersheds where they can accumulate the rainwater. We're having 3 put in on Brewery Field, in actual fact, which is going to supply a lot of the water to water all the plants that we have on there, which is quite a lot. And they do collect the water up quite quickly. The one by the cycle shed, I think it filled it up within a couple of days. So it is something that we can look at as well. Maybe in some of the corners where there is, at the moment, where there isn't any much water, we can put something up there. Celia.
Yeah, can I make a radical suggestion, which might not be possible with a configuration? I mean, I always work from the principle of what is the problem, rather than, coming up with a plan. It's like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And I'm not quite sure what the problem is that we're trying to solve, other than there are some of the plastic water butts that need replacing. I would encourage us to think of a completely radical solution, which is that we supply onto every single plot a cheap water butt. Because the problem of people leaving taps on is because they put them on to fill up the butt and then forget and walk away, and then the butt overflows. But if, like me, you run a system of filling your own water butt with a pipe, you have to undo your pipe from the tap, and you therefore have to turn the tap off. So anyone who has their own water butt on their plot cannot, ergo, will never leave a tap running. So if you removed water butts from the taps and just had good taps, which we check regularly, and every single plot has one water butt, if they want more, then they buy their own, then you are saying that to water your plot, you dip into your water butt with a watering can, none of this kind of hoses everywhere and stuff, but that you dip into your own water butt and you fill your water butt from a tap, and there is no other way. And I suggest that would completely remove not the leaking, but the taps left on, and that problem which we have every year, several times a year, and would cost much less than the big metal troughs to dip and carry. So it's a radical idea, and some people may go, we want to discourage the use of water, but actually I think you'll end up using much less water by doing that. So people would provide another water butts for themselves if they want to, at their expense, and hose pipe with
Correction.
chips on.
Yeah, and we would of course have to make sure that the tap near the water butt, so that they could be filled up near that part of the allotment.
Yes, I mean, or have a long hose, and then you fill your own water butt from time to time, and then when you want to water, all you're doing is going to your own water butt and doing your watering, which is actually much quicker than walking to and from the steel trough. So, you know, I would suggest everyone would be a winner.
Okay, anybody, any comments on that?
I think it's a good idea, Celia. I mean, as long we are allowed to use a hose to fill our own water butts up from the communal ones, aren't we? We are allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's a good idea.
It's really good. Excellent, Celia. I've actually just put in 2 new water butts on our allotment next to our shed, so that we have catchment anyway. But of course, the problem is how much catchment you put up. If you've had 2 or 3 weeks like we've had just now, you need to water the allotment and it isn't raining, so your water butt's not filling up. And that will happen if you spend huge amounts of money putting catchment up to catch water. It'll do brilliantly in the winter, but we don't actually need to water the allotments in the winter. So I think Celia's suggestion, if we can get a cheap source of water butts, mine I got from eBay, it cost 80 quid for 2 of them, and they're massive. They're 220 litres. So when they're full, they only need to be filled every other day if we're watering.
And it probably wouldn't be that expensive, because I would say 50% of the allotments have got water butts. I don't know if I've got the proportion right, but I mean, I certainly have too. Yeah, a lot of them already got them. So if we can encourage, maybe increase the water pressure, get the water pressure better, but just make sure everyone's got a water butt. I think that's a great idea.
And close to a water supply so they can fill it up.
Yeah.
We just need a long hose. I mean, we have probably one of the longest distances from a water butt on our plot. We're very unlucky that we're not near either of the nearest ones.
Yeah, well, we've just
take a minute to unreel a hose.
Yeah.
We've got an ordinary hose, but I'm getting Alan to put a sort of 12-foot extension on, because one of my water butts is not accessible to anywhere either, like you, Libby. So I'm just going to get an extension so that I can fill it up from a water butt, you know, the communal one.
Okay.
It certainly seems to work in the northeast corner where we are, doesn't it, Celia? I mean, I think we've all got water butts now, or there is one sitting next to the tap, and it works.
So are we saying that we get rid of the water butts by the taps as well?
Yes. If you get rid of the water butts, if you get the point of my proposal is that you completely remove the left on tap, because you have to unplug your hose.
Yeah.
So in unplugging your hose, you turn off the tap. So the only water butts are on plots, and you're responsible therefore for filling your own water butt and using that water from the water butt. And you provide one to each plot, you know, brilliant PR. And we provide, you know, like Libby, I have several water butts because I'm a lazy so-and-so, and I just dip and, you know, pour on and fill them from time to time. So I would remove the water butts from standpipes and just have standpipes. So are well maintained, and I honestly think you will find your costs will dramatically reduce.
Well, there are two other advantages to that. Firstly, and importantly, you can get a clean kettle full of water from a standpipe to make a cup of tea. And the other one is you'll do away with all the mosquito breeding grounds, because we'll all be responsible for our own water butts. You can put mine have got covers on them, and you just completely do away with the horrendous mozzie traps that there are around the site. And some of the old troughs are just absolutely buzzing with mosquito larvae
and bees. The one at the back where the woodland is, there's always bees or wasps around that one, always.
They will anyway if the tap's damp.
Okay, so I think we're in agreement that the water is the main problem, and the water butts. And Celia's idea, I think, is a fantastic idea. So what I will do, I will cost it up. All right.
Well done, Celia.
And yeah, you know, I mean, anything. I mean, I must admit that the water butts around the area are quite unsightly. And if we do it that way, then you're probably quite right. We can cut our costs and make sure.
I was going to say, Roy, what if the water butts that are at the end of all the aisles that we're not going to use anymore, maybe we could give those to people for their allotments.
Yeah.
You know, save on cost.
I'm sure we can have a look, and see how much it's going to cost us. So what I'll do that. I'll see if we can get the water pressure increased. All right, and we probably will also in the long term lay a few more pipes so they're a little bit more around and make sure. And we're going to have to renew a lot of the taps anyway. I mean, a lot of them they're crack and what have you. Celia.
And I may have this wrong, but did I hear somebody say that the Scout Hut water comes off ours, but is separately metered?
It's separate. It's separate.
So it's a separate source.
Yes.
Well,
it comes to the same
Wi-Fi
place.
connection.
Sorry.
It does come off ours.
It's one source that comes off the road.
Okay. So
And Scouts have a branch off it.
May I make another radical suggestion then? If the pressure for the allotments is affected because there is a diverter to the Scout Hut, rather than us spending our allotment budget to increase the pressure, why are we not requiring the Scout Hut to drive its own pipe down for its own water? I would be very concerned to see that £2,000 spent on bringing in another source when the reason for our low pressure in the evenings is because our water is supplying somebody else.
The amount of water that the Scout Hut uses is very limited. It is very small. It's not. It's virtually never going to trouble the pressure that we have. You know, the pressure that comes in is it's a fairly standard one that's coming into the allotment. Turn on 3 or 4 taps, then it is going to come down. It's very rarely that the Scout Hut, they just use it to maybe flush the loos and make a cup of tea or something like that. They don't use a lot of water. Very small amount.
Sorry, Roy, is the meeting, are we limited to an hour?
No.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, what am I saying? Yeah. No, we're not.
I've got 20 minutes left to cover the rest of the agenda.
I pay for more than an hour, so we can have as long as we like. We can stay until tomorrow if you like. Okay, so I will look on that. We'll make that our #1 priority of the waters and everything from there on. So the tracks. Okay, and I know DAS are concerned about their track leading up to the to their hut. We've put the gravel down as a temporary measure. We had that left over from the recreation ground, so we've laid that down. You know, we talk about the tracks. I think to a certain extent, people have to use their common sense. If it's been chucking it down with rain, all right, then we know it's going to get muddy. It's going to get lots of mud into it. It's going to turn into a quagmire, and we can either lock the gate up in winter or something, or if we had lots of rain, close the gate. So we don't want to stop having cars on there, but if people use their common sense, you know, and don't take it on there where they're going to likely dig up all the roads and everything.
Yeah.
As the prime one, Roy, who didn't use his common sense.
I wouldn't know who that was, Peter. I'd hate to say.
Speaking as the ultimate sinner, I won't do it again. And I don't think that many people have done it before me.
The gravel has filled it up quite well down there. If we were to go and put one of the proper tracks down there, they are very, very expensive again. For the amount of time that you would need you would use it to take trucks or things up there, then the amount of money you're going to have to spend out, you're talking about a few £1,000s for that area. You know, it's ridiculously expensive. We looked at it when we were doing the recreation ground, you know, and putting this weavy box stuff down for people to go over, and it is very expensive. So I think we just have to live with what we've got. All right. I say it's all usable at the moment, and and when it comes to the wet weather, they may well put a notice up saying, please keep your cars off here. I don't want to stop cars coming on the allotments, but we have to use our common sense. Joanne.
Just a question about vehicles. If we bring the catchment back to Duxford Parish, would that mean less vehicles on the site?
Quite possibly, yeah. But having said that, people tend to use the vehicles because they've got loads of seeds and compost or something they want to put into it.
Yeah.
So
I live a 3-minute walk away, and I still bring my van down sometimes with bits and pieces in the back. So it's I think Celia's got a hand up.
Roy, thank you. I welcome that really sensible suggestion that we use our common sense, and I'm sure people will honour that. That in the wet winter months, we just don't risk the track. But when the track is hard as it is at the moment, then it's fine. And if that's communicated to all allotment holders, I'm sure people will respect that and be very grateful. So thank you.
Okay, we'll keep it like that.
Can I add a small thing there? Partly, I know Peter got his car stuck, but I think partly there was an element of we were having deliveries of manure in the period before that wet weather, which would not have helped. Having the water butts out of the way may help with access, having something like that in different parts of the allotment.
Yeah.
So if, I noticed down the bottom where there's kind of closest to Millennium Wood, as it were, you know, that standpipe is quite in the way. Actually, if that's pushed back towards the allotment, you know, it might help with not having tight corners and stuff like that for deliveries.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I think the question with the water and with the tracks, I mean, in that back corner, especially, access to that is actually very, very poor. Even on foot, it's quite poor. So if we do anything with tracks or anything to do with redoing the water, if we can bear in mind, and with the wood, when we come on to talk about the trees, if we can bear in mind putting good access in all around the site, it's not, you know, if we can use those tasks to also improve the access, I think that would be very useful.
Okay. Good. Okay. The wood. Yes. The Millennium Wood. I guess the thing we can do with it is it probably needs thinning out and making it a bit more spacious, especially for the allotments that are up close to it. Getting rid of it, I mean, it would be expensive, and I don't think it's going to be that beneficial getting rid of it completely. You've got the place where the bees and the chickens and everything are up there, and they're all good under the trees. So I think what we need to do with that is just to thin it out and cut it back a bit, and, you know, get rid of any of the dead wood. Some of the big ones that are going to get excessively big, we can start to thin out, and then maybe put some more suitable planting in there for the future. I think that's going to be something we're now going to have to take over a few years, because again, it's quite expensive. Joanne?
Just to clarify, that wouldn't be the allotments budget, that would be the main parish council tree budget.
Yeah, that will come out of the main parish council budget. But having said that, there's no money in this year's budget for it. Celia?
Yeah, so I mean, my understanding of the history of that is such that we perhaps should not be too wedded to keeping it there as a precious thing, because it probably isn't precious. There is only one lot of chickens down there, and I'm not even sure whether the bee person has still got bees there.
Yeah,
so
still
again,
there.
I'm not sure that that's a driver. I think Bob's point about access to that far left-hand corner is very well made, and I would again make a perhaps radical suggestion that unless we tackle this problem quickly and hard, the trees will become bigger and become a bigger problem and more expensive. So what I would suggest is taking out the first 2 rows of trees, just getting rid of them so that you make a proper track and some kind of turning circle, or at least a way of reversing and then coming back, so that people can get down to that far left-hand corner as you look at the site. And then having taken out the first time, and I'm not sure whether they're in rows or whatever, but taken out a good chunk of the trees, literally wipe the lot out, and then thin the rest so that you're left with dappled shade, if anything. But the problem will simply get bigger, and you've got an opportunity. But to make a decent track off the main track, turn left to get down to the left-hand corner. So I would like to put that proposal.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we're having this discussion now, because we realise that the trees could be getting a lot bigger, and we need to do something, not necessarily from the allotment point of view, but from the parish point of view. Bob.
Yeah, I mean, all these things are good. The only thing I would say is that we should be planting trees rather than cutting them down at the moment. So I think there needs to be a good practical reason why we remove any tree. And we've heard quite a lot in terms of access and, you know, dealing with it before it gets impossible, or you know, dealing with it while it's easy to do. And obviously, you know, the wood is
frozen.
He's frozen.
Frozen. He's frozen.
He'll probably come back.
Really nice big trees that are now 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know, last at least for another 20 years, maybe even hundreds of years. That's something we should be looking to do as a village, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, could I interject something there? About 3 years ago now, I think Rob Smith and Paul Corness came up with a joint plan to manage the Millennium Wood, which they were prepared to implement. And for some reason, it was never really approved by the then council. But it might be a good idea to speak to them again so that we can see what actually is worth saving and what isn't, and how far we can implement Celia's plan around saving some of the trees that are worth keeping.
Yeah, I mean, some trees have been cut down recently, I think, but I don't recall any plan on that, Joanne.
We have a tree survey every 18 months for all parish council owned trees. And so last time they came to the Millennium Wood, they did take some action then, and the rest were deemed healthy, but whether they were the right species is another matter.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, as Joanne said, we do have a tree surgeon come, the audit come round on the trees, and they tell us whether we need to change any, whether they need to be crowned or things like that. Celia.
Yes, I mean, Bob, I'm completely with you about keeping trees. However, that wood is just completely incorrectly planted. And while we may all cry if we chop down a tree, and I too would feel sad, I actually think it will be better management if we leave some really good ones there and thin them out. They will be healthier. And that will be much better for our environment, while also keeping the allotment site itself healthy. So I'm not saying, oh, let's just chop down trees willy-nilly. I think that there was a huge mistake made when they were bunged in there. And I think this is an opportunity for us to go, hey, come on, let's get this right. Let's make this work really well for the environment.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing there, Celia. Yeah.
We're all in agreement we need to do something about it, and we will look into it. And maybe I'll have a chat with Robin and see what we can do from a parish point of view to help alleviate it. Any that are overhanging the allotments, up number 59 and around there, and up where you, Bob. There was a comment that the roots are coming through and taking the nutrient from the ground of the allotments. Can we just cut the roots out? If you've got one on the allotment, cut it out. Chuck it out.
No, because they grow back again, unfortunately.
But we will look in that, and we will do something about it. And
I mean, is it something that actually we need to get some professional advice on?
Well, yeah, we will.
It sounds quite complicated to me as to how to manage that going forward. Yeah,
it won't be me and a bit of paper and a saw. We'll get some professional help on it. Then I'll get the saw out and do it myself. No, but the pine tree we will get removed from Michelle from. Right, okay, so that's that. So we're going to concentrate on the water and the water butts, and that's the most important thing. We've talked about the tracks, we've talked about the woodlands, we've talked about the plots that need to be checked out. We'll deal with that. That's covered everything else. Have we had anything else coming up? Parking we've talked about. If somebody didn't hit the post on the entrance to the gate post, we will get that repaired so that the gate can be locked. I see a number of people are putting their allotment numbers on their plots now, so when I go around I know which one I'm looking at, which is quite good. Somebody complained about the rabbits. Not much we can do about those. Rabbits are a part of the allotment life. If they want to put a fence around their allotments, then that would have to be at the allotment person's own cost. The parish council does not fence off allotments. If somebody wants to fence them off for anything, then it's up to them to do it. I don't think there's anything else.
Skip.
Roy, can I just make a suggestion? I often find, I don't know how we do it, but I often find I've got things I don't want anymore. And, you know, it might be something useful for somebody else. I wondered if there was a way, or either a notice board or something that I could say, oh, I've got a ladder or I've got a spare rake, or, you know, if there was somewhere that we could offer surplus things that we have to other allotment holders.
Well, having said that, my clerk has been pestering me to put a new notice board up on the allotments. For some reason, she thinks it's falling apart. Maybe because the grass is frosted and you can't see any of the notices we put behind it, which might or might not be a good idea. So maybe we shall put a new notice board up, and rather than have it right by the gate, maybe have it up further up the track so everybody can see it as they can come in. And maybe we can have a section on it there where people can put their own notices and things like that, because you've got the DAS one on that's coming through the gate as well. But I don't know whether that's really the best place for the notice boards. Maybe we should have them up a little further up where the entrance to the DAS hut is.
Yeah.
On the corner there, so when people come in, they get a better view of it. What I want to think about that.
Problem because there are two entrances, Roy. Whatever you do, there are some people that come in the bottom entrance and never ever go through the green gate, and vice versa. So notice boards are a bit of a, you know. But we do actually have. I'm sure Jennifer, I've probably preempted her. We have an email circulation that we send newsletters around to our members. We've now got, we represent about 52% of the plots now, but I'm sure that Joanne would be happy to send an email around just if somebody's got something to sell.
We do have an email list now, which we can send people down. Your invite was sent via that, blind copied, of course, to everybody. And so, yes, if there was anything that one wants to send around, then we're quite happy to pass it on to our allotment holders.
Yeah, it just might be nice to have a, you know, like wanted or surplus, you know, people that are looking for something, or people that got stuff they don't want. It would just be a good place, maybe somewhere central where, and you could put your plot number and people could come round and see you if you've got something spare.
By all means, we'll stick it on the DAS notice board if you want, and then everybody can see it. Whichever
is that lockable though, or can you just?
Oh yes. I mean, you've never tried to get into. Yeah, it's lockable.
So how would you put a notice up if it's locked?
Can I make a suggestion that we might consider?
Just ask.
Hold on, guys.
Key up there.
Hold on. Let's do Celia first. I'll come back to you in a second, Peter.
All I was going to say is that Julian has had his hand up for a while and nobody's taken any notice. So may I hand over to Julian, please?
Sorry, Julian.
I was just falling off the bottom of the list. I was just going to say that talking of the bottom entrance, there is a piece of arras fencing that had been put up against the hedge, and the farmer was hit with their hedge cutter a couple of years ago and half destroyed. And it's very unsightly and probably dangerous and needs replacing at some point.
So where's that?
At the first gate from the village by the scout hut. If you just look round the corner, there's some Harris fencing along by the gate,
All right.
which has been taken around the corner along the hedge, and
Yeah.
somebody, when cutting the hedge, has hit it with a hedge cutter, and it is a bit of a mess.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that. Right, I will look into that. Sorry, I was
Thank you.
Julian. I didn't see you in the corner
It's fine, don't worry.
there. Libby, Celia, you were going to say something else.
No, I was pointing out Julian wanted.
Oh, you were pointing out Julian. Yeah, he'd fallen off my screen. Peter.
Just a suggestion, we might consider setting up a group, an allotments group under Next Door Duxford. Next Door Duxford now has 715 neighbours on it, and several subgroups, including Soapbox Derby and the community centre. Seems a natural for having an allotment group, and it'd be a good place to get rid of unwanted or valuable or less valuable things. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, an excellent idea. Yeah, I forgot to have the groups in there. And it is very popular. I mean, if there's anything you need to know what's going on in Duxford, then if there's an emergency or anything, then we post on it. And with 800 members on it, that's a good portion of the village in it. So yes, maybe that's a good idea to set up an allotment group.
Yeah.
Post these sort of things. We do have to remember occasionally that the people that still use letters and don't have the internet and what have you, but we can still have the notice boards for that. Okay.
Can I just jump in very quickly on Michelle's point, and it will be short. I've been pushing for some time now to try and get a skip once a year. And the reason for that is that year on year, people go up to allotments, they put plastic bottles down for one reason or another. There's a site not very far from ours where the amount of plastic is far more than the present resident or incumbent could possibly get rid of in his private car. And if we had a skip just once a year to empty all this stuff into, I think the allotments generally would be much tidier. Now, if what went into that skip was salvageable, as Michelle suggests, that might be a good opportunity for people to skip dive and salvage bits, but the plastic really needs something to be done about it.
Yeah,
That's a good idea, having a skip once a year.
Yeah, it's in October, mid to the end of October. All right. So
Yes.
what we can do then, out of this money, then I can put towards the parish council that we supply a skip end of October for people to do things. You'd like us to do that, would you?
My only reservation with that is trying to recycle. With a skip, it's very easy just to shove everything in and then it gets taken away. Whereas if you take it to the tip, you know, you've got to put the metal in the metal recycling and the plastic in the plastic recycling. But I do appreciate that in the balance of schemes, if you're just going to not get rid of it versus getting rid of it, a skip's probably a good thing to keep the site overall ticking overly tidy.
Is there a limit to what you can put? I mean, would you be able to put, what are those, I've forgotten those wooden things are called that I seem to have a lot.
Pallets?
Pallets. Would you be able to put a pallet there, or is that?
If you advertise on Next Door that you've got a load of pallets you don't want, all right, somebody will be around your house within 10 minutes. I had two outside. I had something to do with 2 pallets outside my back door. Half an hour after they're around, I had a knock on the door and saying, "Do you want those pallets?" People use them for anything. They make seats out of them. They use them for anything. So
yeah,
Next Door, and they'll go.
Yeah. Okay.
But
that's true of pallets. But when it comes to plastic and old sheathing that's been torn and so on, people need a hand to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's basically things like old landscaping, sheeting, old frameworks for cloches, broken glass, bits of rotten raised bed. You name it. It's there, and it's really hard to get rid of.
There's even a replica of the pyramid at the Louvre up there, believe it or not. It's been folded up now, but it was actually based on the Louvre pyramid. We spoke to the guy who built it. It's been there for years.
I think that's been gotten rid of now.
It might as well go in a skip.
Still there. It's just folded up. You can't see it.
I will put it to the parish council that some of this money we will earmark for the skip at the end of October. If they agree, it will be there, and we will put it up there for the end of October for you.
Great.
Okay, I think I've got just about covered everything. Anybody think of anything else? Joanne, anything you want to comment on? No?
Right, I've got to go.
Okay, lovely. Thanks all for your attendance.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Roy.
Thank you, Roy, for setting it up. It was great. Thank
I
you.
will send some notes out about this, and it'll be up on our website as well for everybody to have a look at. And I'll be contacting you soon. All right. Thanks all very much.
Thank you very much, Roy.
Thank you,
Thank
Roy.
Bye.
Bye.